Hey there folks, John here with Through My Lens, and today I'm coming to you with another gun-related video. Today I'm going to be doing what I call my Gen 5 Glock 19 MOS review from a SIG guy. Now, long video warning, there's a lot to say here. I'm going to try to get through it as quickly as possible, but I do anticipate this video will be longer than my usual 10 to 15 minute video, just because of the importance of the subject matter here. Now, by way of full disclosure, I'm a SIG guy. Now, before the P320 was a thing, I was a Smith & Wesson M&P guy. And while I have always respected Glock for being the originator of the polymer striker platform, I have never particularly liked a Glock personally. Mostly for ergonomic reasons. I could just never shoot a Glock as well as I could other platforms. And I think there's some definite reasons why that is, but the important thing to know here is this is why we have choices in the marketplace for firearms. There is no one gun that works for everyone universally. So up until very recently, I have never owned a Glock. I can actually remember back in the 1980s when the very first generation Glock 17 hit the market. My father was a firearms collector and part-time gun dealer who enjoyed buying and selling at gun shows. I can remember when I was in high school and in college helping him at gun shows and working at the tables. And I can still remember at the gun shows, dealers of the time all being mystified at people wanting to pay $400 for this plastic gun. Now, 2020 hindsight being what it is, those people were the smart ones. Now, fast forward to today, why would I want to buy a Glock? Well, the answer is quite simple. I wanted to try my hand at shooting a Glock Sports Shooting Foundation match. The Glock Sports Shooting Foundation, or GSSF, as is more colloquially known, runs both outdoor and indoor matches throughout the United States. I've often wanted to try to shoot one, if for no other reason because Glock gives away a lot of guns at these matches. But you do have to have a Glock gun in order to shoot one of Glock's matches. Kind of makes sense, right? Now, one of the big things that kept me away until this year from shooting these matches is that Glock never really supported an optics division in their GSSF matches. All their competitive divisions were essentially iron sight. I mean, sure, you could shoot in the unlimited division where you could use an optic, but I have no desire to buy a Glock and then to pay 3 times the price of the gun to make it into an unlimited race gun. But this year, Glock finally added an MOS division to support their modular optics system, or MOS line of firearms. So I decided to try to give Glock a try. Now, since I was unsure as to how I would get along with this gun and how much I would enjoy GSSF matches, I decided to purchase a Glock 19 MOS, which is what you see here. Now, while Glock 19 sized guns may not be ideal for competition, it's an easy gun for resale. And given my uncertainty with the platform and the matches, I thought that resale was an important factor in my purchase decision. Now, I bought this Glock 19 MOS about a month ago, just prior to the match that I intended to shoot with the gun. I shot the match last weekend. Now, I'll do a separate video talking about that match, as again, it was just last weekend, but the important thing to note here is that I had 3 practice sessions with this gun prior to the match, and I shot at about roughly 250 rounds each of those sessions, and I shot a bit under 200 rounds at the match, so I've got roughly 1,000 rounds of experience on this particular firearm from which to form my opinion. So let me first begin my review with a discussion of really what I like about the Gen 5 Glock 19 MOS. Now, one of the big things I liked was the fact that it had 3 magazines in the box. Again, go back and watch my unboxing video where I show everything that came in the box, but there were 3 magazines that came in the box, which I thought was super cool. Several other manufacturers only include 2 magazines, or sometimes in some cases even 1. I did pick up a couple of extra magazines to shoot the match in, and they were super cheap. So I certainly enjoyed that aspect to Glock ownership. And the other thing that I kind of discovered that I liked is the fact that the numbering here that shows you these windows, which show you the number of rounds that you have in the magazine, are all in one place on the back of the magazine. Compare that to most other magazine manufacturers, which run these little windows along both sides of the magazine, so that that usually the odd numbers are on one side, the even are on others. So you gotta check both sides to really be sure how many rounds you have in the magazine. And in most cases, for most people, that may not be a real big thing. But I discovered at this Glock match, this GSSF match, that they only let you load to 10 rounds in the magazines to keep the level competition, the playing field level with those states where they can only have magazines with 10 rounds in them, or a 10 round capacity limit. So I found myself between stages trying to quickly load these magazines before I was up again, and this was just a real handy feature that made at a glance viewing of how many rounds I had in the magazine very simple. So again, really like the fact that they have 3 mags in the boxes, and I really did like the magazines. Now, the Gen 5 trigger on the Glock is much improved over previous generations. I don't hate it. Now, I'm not exactly saying that I like this trigger, but I don't hate it. And that's a big leap forward, because I have always hated Glock triggers on previous generations. But the upgraded trigger on the Gen 5 really isn't that bad. We live in a wonderful era where you can buy defensive guns for nearly all the major manufacturers, and the triggers are all quite decent out of the box. That goes for SIG, Smith & Wesson, many others, and now Glock. You really don't have to do trigger upgrades and modifications, which may in some cases detract from reliability and possibly even safety anymore. That certainly wasn't the case in previous generations, where on the Glock, as well as some other guns, where you almost had to do a trigger modification right out of box. But with this Gen 5 Glock 19, you may want to do a trigger modification, and I get it, but you certainly don't have to. Now, out of the box, the pull weight, again, there's no magazine in any of these guns, and they've all been cleared prior to the video. But out of the box, the pull weight on the Glock 19, or I think most Glocks that are manufactured, is about 5.5 pounds. And that's pretty consistent with the measurements I got on this example. Now, GSSF rules do not permit really much at all in the way of trigger modifications in all divisions except Unlimited. The idea, again, is to keep all the guns competing as stock as possible to level the playing field. But one modification they do allow is the replacement of the internal connector with a Glock manufactured or a stock Glock minus connector. It takes just a little bit of weight off, maybe about a half pound in the case of this gun. But it did help. And when you're talking about competition shooting, I think that trigger needs all the help it can get. Now, speaking of changing the trigger connector, I was really both shocked and amazed at how simple this particular platform was to work on. I mean, it's nearly idiot-proof. I'm not particularly a mechanical person. Over the years, I've gotten quite a bit of experience working on my own guns, both for maintenance and for modification. And this is really an attractive aspect of the Glock platform, and especially for someone who competes. I literally took the part of thing for the very first time with the help of a YouTube video, and after that experience felt like I could easily pass a Glock armorer's course. Disassembly and reassembly really is that simple. Now, another thing I really do admire about the Glock is the slide finish. I think I like it better than SIGs. Now, both Glock and the M&P, I'll show you one here. Oh, that's my SIG. Here is my M&P. Both Glock and the M&P have kind of a lustery shine to their finish, while the SIG, has more of a matte, dull finish. And I really do prefer the, kind of the shiny, lustier finish on the Glock. And all indications are that this is a pretty darn robust finish on this gun as well. So pretty impressed with that. Also, was pretty impressed with the flared Magwell on this firearm. It does make for a little faster and easier magazine changes. Again, a concept that clearly made its way from the competition field to the stock stock guns. And I will also say that Glock mags, appear to be super drop free. It doesn't take any effort at all to get those guys to drop free. So that's pretty neat. I like that a lot. Another great thing about this particular variant on the Glock 19 MOS is that it came with Ameriglo night sights. Now, I'm sure that some will be disappointed that this gun doesn't have suppressor height sights, but I'm really impressed that this gun didn't come with what was historically really bad sights that came on all Glocks, the plastic U-shaped ones. One of my two biggest complaints about Glocks has always been, one, the stock plastic sights that they've historically put on their guns, as well as the grip angle. And again, the sights are not suppressor height, but that's not a huge issue for me for several reasons. I'm just really encouraged that Glock is finally selling their guns with quality night sights. So it comes right out of the box with some good sights. So kudos to Glock for making that change. I do like the RTF frame, or the rough textured frame. It is an improvement over previous generations. On the plus side, I think that most people will find that the RTF grip does improve their ability to hang on to the gun during recoil as compared to previous generations, and they won't find that this grip texture is uncomfortable or damaging to any clothes that they might be wearing. I will say grip texture, much like triggers, are very much a personal thing. And if this were going to be my carry gun, I would still need a more aggressive stippling applied to the grip for my personal preferences. So again, while you may want to stipple the gun, you don't have to. It's really fine out of the box. Okay, so let me kind of shift over into talking about some things that I don't like about this Gen 5 Glock 19 MOS. Now, probably at the top of the list is the fact that the Glock is significantly more expensive than the two major platforms they compete with, again, the SIG P320 and the Smith & Wesson M&P. And that higher price, it's at least $100 depending on exactly the model that you're talking about. But again, that really completely negates the advantage I listed above about having 3 mags included in the box. Now, out of the box, the Glock 19 MOS comes with a package of adapter plates for various optics manufacturers. And out of the box, the MOS package that came with this particular firearm had no instructions whatsoever. It was literally trial and error with each plate in the package to try to figure out which worked with the red dot I selected, which just happens to be a SIG Romeo 1 Pro. The plates are numbered, but there is no key anywhere in the packaging identifying which numbers correspond to what optic manufacturer. Instead, Glock has propaganda on the back of the MOS package, the Glock story, and really that makes no sense to me whatsoever. Now, another huge problem I have with this particular firearm is that the stock Glock MOS plates out of the box really do kind of suck. Most Glock guys that I spoke with strongly recommended using a third-party plate, and those are not cheap. You'd have to pay around $70 for one of those. But since GSSF mandates no real modifications, I have not gone that route with this Gen 5 Glock 19 MOS. You can see that where the optic plate is between the slide and the optic, there is a significant gap that increases in width as you go toward the rear sight. That is terrible. That is really ugly. Just for giggles, I completely backed out all the screws, took the optic off, replaced the plate, and decided to give it another try. And it didn't help. There's significant warpage on that plate. It's a MIM part. It's not forged, and it's just bad. I'm really sorry to say it's bad. If I were set on carrying a Glock Gen 5 19 MOS with an optic, I doubt it would be an MOS model. I would probably buy a non-MOS model and have the slide milled to accept a Trijicon RMR. The RMR is, in my mind, still the best optic choice for a defensive handgun. You can see that I've gone that route with my SIG P320 Compact. The slide has been milled to accept this Trijicon RMR. Same goes for the M&P 9 Compact, the M&P 2.0 Compact that I have. The slide was milled to accept just the Romeo, the Trijicon RMR. Now, for a competition gun, the flexibility to use different optics from multiple manufacturers really might make the MOS feature more appealing. But again, there's some real problems with the MOS system at this time. Hopefully Glock will address that in the future. Now, another problem that I have with the Glock platform itself is that out of the box, effective dry fire with the Glock is a bit of a challenge. When you pull the trigger in dry fire, you go straight back on the first trigger press, and it stays kind of at the back wall until you cock it again. Let me demonstrate. I'm just going to pull the trigger. We've got the click, and you can see that the trigger is staying right up against the back of the gun there. There's really not much you can do except to reset the trigger. If you're in dry fire, you can continue to kind of pull your trigger finger against what amounts to the Glock safety here on the trigger, but you're not going to get much out of the trigger press until you actually reset the trigger. Now, if you compare that to both the SIG and the M&P 2.0, here is the SIG. After you do that first trigger pull, the trigger does maintain a full range of motion for you to continue to be able to work the trigger in the same range of motion as you would in live fire or when the trigger is cocked. Same goes for this M&P 2.0 Compact. You pull the trigger does return, and again you have the full range of motion to work through when you do dry fire, and that's really pretty important. There's some third-party fixes to that. There's some magazines that you can buy for effective dry fire. There's something called the Glock Cube that kind of holds the slide out of battery so that the trigger can be manipulated. But again, out of the box, really don't like how this gun works in dry fire. The other big thing I guess it's not a big thing, but most firearms have a takedown lever here. You want to take the slide off, lock the slide back, pull down on the lever, and the slide comes off. That is just not how the Glock works, unfortunately. It's quite a bit more difficult than that. It's not difficult to understand. I think it's just harder to manipulate. You've got to make sure the trigger is pulled, hold the slide just barely out of battery, hold down on both sides of these two levers here that can be found on both sides of the gun, and there's quite a bit of resistance there, and it's easy to slide off those. Man, that is just hard. And then you can, well, I didn't effectively do it this time, apparently. See, it's just not as simple as what at least I think it should be. There we go. It just requires a little bit more hand gymnastics than, it's just a little bit more overly complex than I personally think it should be. So overall, I do have to say I'm pretty impressed with the Gen 5 changes and upgrades. And I'm glad I was not an early adopter of the Gen 5 because Glock has made some corrections to the initial Gen 5 release to include removing of the cut out of the front magwell. Again, this is a later Gen 5, so it doesn't have it, but the earlier ones had a cut in this magwell that apparently was intended to facilitate easy removal of magazines, but a lot of shooters really didn't like that for various reasons, and they fixed it. So again, like many of the Gen 5 improvements, but I'm glad I waited till the Gen 5 had been out for a few months before I jumped in. So now the question becomes, do I recommend the Glock? And wholeheartedly, absolutely, the answer is yes. The Gen 5 is the best iteration of the Glock platform to date, in my personal opinion. But I have really never not recommended that people who are looking to buy their first gun try a Glock. And that's because from an ergonomic perspective, the gun that I personally don't care for may be the perfect gun for you, and vice versa. Glock, purely from a reliability perspective, has always been a fantastic firearm. You really just can't take anything away from Glock, no matter what your personal preferences may be. You may be wondering, if I intend to keep the Gen 5 Glock 19 MOS, and that's really tough for me to say right now. I purchased this gun to shoot a couple of GSSF matches to see if I could win some guns, to see if I maybe liked it a little better than I remembered. And again, I shot my first match just a couple of days ago, and I'm not sure if I won any guns at this point. It remains to be seen. And I'm not really even sure if I want to shoot another match. Again, I'm going to discuss that in a separate video. But I can say, that I did have a whole lot of fun shooting this Glock 19 MOS. Again, it just wasn't all that fun for me. And again, it's really ergonomics. The grip just really doesn't suit my hand very well. The Glock hump, particularly as I compare it to the other firearms that I particularly like. The SIG P320 grip is better. I think probably I prefer out of all the guns the M&P 2.0 compact grip. It's a little bit skinnier, and my hands are pretty small to begin with, and that's one of the reasons why I think I don't particularly care for the Glock, because if you don't have medium to larger size hands, it's just a weird grip to work with, and I think this hump tends to kind of have it almost pushes my hands away from the gun. It's really odd. I did pretty well at the match that I shot, maybe even a little better than I expected. I came in 6th in the amateur MOS division out of, I think, 15 other amateurs. But again, it's certainly not a love connection at this juncture with this firearm. There's a very large part of me that says I would be smarter to just sell this and buy another SIG or M&P, and time will tell. There's a couple of more matches that I might try to go to, GSSF matches, or I may decide to sell it. We'll see if I win any guns from the match that I shot, because it's, again, they haven't made the determination about who's going to win guns at that match yet, and I did well enough that I may be a contender for a gun. Well, there you have it. There is my thoughts on the Glock Gen 5, Glock 19 MOS Gen 5. Again, strongly recommend it. It just may not be a gun for me. Time will tell. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Take care. God bless. We'll see you in the next video. I hope you've enjoyed this production from the Through My Lens YouTube channel. If you did, please click on the like button and do share the video on social media. If you'd like to see more content like it, please do subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and do check out Through My Lens at www.throughmylens.org.